Good morning, everyone. I am Hansani Kaushalya, Department of Geography, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Jayewardenepura, Sri Lanka. We live in a world where poverty and inequality have persisted for generations, and despite countless interventions, money, technology, aid, these issues remain deeply rooted. But what if the real change doesn't begin outside, but it inside? Today, we invite you to explore a different path, a path that looks beyond material solutions and into the realm of the human spirit and consequences. Our research topic is the role of spirituality in reducing poverty and inequality for sustainable development. Okay, first of all, I would like to explain to you what is the process of our presentation. For that, firstly, identification of a sustainability is most important. According to Ulluwishewa in 2019, sustainability is the ability of any individual, community, or country to meet their needs and live happily without compromising the ability of other individuals, communities, countries, and future generations to meet their needs and live happily. Reduction of poverty and inequality is widely acknowledged as a crucial goal of sustainable development. It is pointed out in 2016 UN report. For that, the behavioral transformation is required. That is the inner transformation. This transformation from self-centeredness to all-centeredness or separateness to oneness. For that, spirituality is essential to foster this transformation. In our research article, explore spiritual underdevelopment in both wealthy and poor as a way to free the mind from mental conditioning, how mental conditioning sustains poverty and inequality, freeing the mind as a method to reduce poverty and inequality. Finally, suggestions to integrate spirituality into development effort. Now I move to the research problem part. These problems are addressed in our research article. Why do material-based poverty solutions lack lasting impact? How does spiritual underdevelopment sustain poverty in inequality? How can inner transformation help reduce poverty? Finally, what are the effective ways to integrate spirituality into development program? Okay, after the explanation of research problem, now I move to the research objective part. Our general objective is to explore how the integration of spirituality understood as the process of freeing the mind from conditioning and developing all-centered consequences can contribute to the effective alleviation of poverty and inequality by promoting the sustainable development. Our specific objectives are to examine the limitation of conventional poverty alleviation, to analyze the role of spiritual underdevelopment in both poor and wealthy individuals, to explore the concept of spiritual development as an inner transformation, finally, to propose practical strategies for integrating spirituality into development policies. Okay, after the explanation of this basic part, now I move to the methodology part of our research. The methodology part derived from major three sources. The first one is literature review. The review of literature covered spirituality, economics, sociology, and psychology of poverty and inequality. Literature review part, we identified two aspects of human mind. The first one is pristine mind and second one is conditioned mind. Under the pristine mind, unconditioned, all-centered, peaceful are the major characteristics, but conditioning mind always time shaped by desires, aversion, identity, culture, and etc. The second source is insight gained by second author through non-judgmental observation of his thought and emotion. The third one is the field survey. The field survey involved guided interview of 34 individuals in both wealthy and poor in Kobegane Divisional Secretariat in Kurunegala district of Sri Lanka. Okay, this is the methodology part of our research. Now I move to the descriptive part of our research article. The firstly, understanding spirituality is most important. Actually, the conventional poverty alleviation approaches are failure in identifying the real root cause of poverty and inequality. As a result of that, the spiritual approach shows as the new form of poverty alleviation. What is this spirituality? Spirituality is the behavior of most ordinary people in driven by psyche, leading to self-centeredness and conflict. Spirituality involves transcending psyche and align with spirit, which leads to becoming one with the spirit and being loving and compassionate effortlessly. According to this way, we can clearly identify what is the spirituality. Now I move to the very creative part of our presentation, the conditioning of the mind. Under the conditioning of human mind, we explain it use of the rainbow analogy. Okay, please listen carefully and watching carefully this short video clips to identifying how the conditioning of the mind in the human.
Rainwater, when it first falls, flows freely across the land. It has no fixed path, no destination, only openness. But over time, as it follows the same routes again and again, gullies form, grows in the earth, and now the water no longer flows freely. It follows the path of least resistance. Our thoughts work the same way, driven by craving for pleasure and aversion to discomfort. They form mental grooves. These grooves shape the flow of our thinking. And from this conditioned flow, a sense of I emerges not a true self, but a pattern, a habit, an illusion of control. But awareness changes everything. When we see the grooves for what they are, we stop mistaking them for our slaves. Then, like rainwater freed from its old paths, our thoughts begin to move in harmony with life, all centered, open and true.
Okay, after the video watching, you can clearly identify how conditioning of the human mind. Talking about the types of the human mind conditioning, the primary and secondary conditioning. The primary conditioning shaped by sensory input and brain rewiring builds separate self-identity, encourage self-centered behaviors, traps the mind in ego-based pattern. These are the major characteristics of primary conditioning. But the secondary conditioning, always shaped by early cultural and social influences, forms mental filters that shape perceptions, can be overcome through spiritual awareness. These are the major characteristics of secondary conditioning. Further explanation about the conditioning of the mind in the human and how perpetuate the poverty and inequality in society use of this model. Attachment to a small comfort, aversion to a struggle and failure, sense of helplessness, fear of risk. These are the major characteristics of poor individuals. In addition to that, abundance mindset, attachment to wealthy, luxury and comfort, aversion to discomfort, loss and instability. These are the characteristics of wealthy individuals based on the both primary and secondary conditioning. But based on these all characteristics, the poverty and inequality perpetuation continuously in the society as a cycle. Okay, now I move to the explain about the preliminary result of our field survey. Under the result of our field survey, we identified our result based on major 4 categories. The first one is born poor and still continue in poverty, born poor but escaped poverty, born rich and continues to be rich, born rich but failed to sustain the wealth. These are the 4 categories. The first one is born poor and is still continue in poverty. These type of characteristics we identified based on our survey. Desire for quick relief blocks long-term goals, self-centered focus limit collective concerns, blaming the wealthy reduces personal responsibility, focus on systematic blame leads to helplessness. These are the major characteristics based on primary and secondary conditioning in this first category. The relevant quotations inside in this square, these quotations extracted by survey-based case studies. The second part is born poor but escaped poverty, is strong desire for wealthy and comfort, willing to sacrifice now for a better future. Role models expand belief in possibilities. Belief the poor are lazy discourage helping them are the major primary and secondary conditioning situations of theirs. Relevant quotation inside in this square, these quotations extracted by field survey-based case studies. The third party is born rich and continuous they rich, desire to keep wealth and social status, willingness to take risks, support long-term goals, education and role models build financial skills and planning. These are the major characteristics in third category in our result section. The final category pointed out excessive desire lead to unsustainable choices, avoiding discomfort hinders good decisions, lack of moral grounding leads to reckless behaviors, family or peers may discourage responsibility and growth through failure. These are the major characteristics of fourth category. These relevant quotations of these both category inside in this square extracted by our field survey-based case studies. Okay, this is the graphical presentation relevant to these 4 categories. The first category including the 10 responses, second category including the 10 responses, third category include also 10 responses, and finally we use 4 responses for that. Use of these type of visual graphic created by result of questionnaire survey based on Likert scale questions asked by 34 individuals in both poor and wealthy individuals. Use of this visualized data can be proved the preliminary field survey result in quantitatively. This is the Likert scale. Most of the statement proved the highly agreed with this statement according to the descriptive part of our preliminary based survey results. Okay, after this result section, now I move to the next part of our presentation, freeing the mind from conditioning to reducing the poverty and inequality. These steps can be followed for that. Inner transformation leads to shared well-being, wealthy shift from accumulation to empowerment, poor develop self-empowerment and agency, all-centered consequences enable systemic balance. These type of steps we can follow to freeing the mind of conditioning and reducing the poverty and inequality. Okay, after explain it, now I move to the conclusion part of our research. Firstly, I explained the nature of the mind and spirituality. Secondly, we further explain to you what is the impact of conditioning thinking. And finally, we said to you spirituality in poverty reduction method. So this is the conclude our presentation. Now I move to the final part of this presentation, the policy recommendations. These type of recommendation can be given to you. The utilizing local religious centers for mental liberations, reforming and empowering religious leadership, promoting adult education as a tool for inner freedom, introducing spiritual training for development professionals, addressing cultural resistance to dialogue and education. These are the recommendations can be given to integrate spirituality to reducing poverty and inequality in society. These are the references list we used to write down our research article. Okay, now I get to approach to end of our presentation. Finally, I would like to say spirituality is the productive approach to reducing poverty and inequality for sustainable development. Thank you, all of you.